And we are live. Thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, today we are discussing, as promised, gender stereotypes and everything surrounding the stereotypes on gender in society today. Uh, we are joined by a phenomenal panel of amazing people doing amazing things all over the continent. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Robert Burale, the presence of Kabelo Chabalala, the presence of Patience Iribagiza, Rachel Mwikali, and Hilawit. I will be joined by a co-moderator. Her name is Michelle. But without spending too much time on introductions, I want us to jump straight in. I will ask Robert to introduce himself. Tell us a bit about what you do in a few seconds, and then we'll move onwards to Kabelo. So, Robert.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you. I don't take it for granted. Well, I am an inspirational speaker. I'm a corporate trainer, an author. I'm the founder of The Naked Truth and the Robert Burale School of Leadership. But above all, I am a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thank you so much, Robert. Kabelo Chabalala.
Good everyone. My name is Kabelo Chabalala from South Africa. I'm a columnist, the founder of the Young Men Movement, an organization of boys to ensure that we have better raised boys that subsequently are going to be better men in the future. And yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you so much, Kabelo. Over to you, Patience Iribagiza. Patience.
I'm Patience Iribagiza. I'm from Rwanda. I'm the executive director and founder of a non-government organization called AfroArc, and we work on women empowerment and as well as GBV and socioeconomic empowerment generally among the youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patience. Hilawit, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Introduce myself. So I'm a gender and youth advisor at Care International Ethiopia. Basically, my job is ensuring mainstreaming of gender across programs, both development and humanitarian, and supporting capacity building, and also like evaluation, monitoring, etc. Overall program cycle, gender mainstreaming. Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Hilawit. And last but not least, before I let my co-moderator introduce herself, Rachel Mwikali, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Mwikali. I'm a proud and apologetically African feminist based in Wadara Informal Settlements. I am a co-founder and convener of Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defenders Kenya. It's a social movement of grassroots activists, feminist activists, and community organizers. I'm passionate about gender justice. That's why I'm here. And being also that is 16 days of activism. So I'm looking forward for the conversation. And now we can sort of contribute in one or another to ensure like...
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I want to introduce Michelle. Michelle will be helping me carry out this discussion for the few minutes that we will be all with you in preparation, of course, for today's evening concert, where we have lined up an array of artists to have an interesting showcase of music and poetry and dance centered around educating us on the issues surrounding gender and the stereotypes that come from it. So Michelle, yes, please take us away.
Thank you so much, my co-moderator, Robin. And thank you all for being so patient with us as we sorted out our back-end issues. We truly appreciate your being gracious with us as we went through that. So very quickly today, I will introduce our subject of the day, which is gender stereotypes. I think also in the interest of time, you will forgive me for not getting into the individual profiles of all our speakers. However, we will invite them tell us a little more about what they do and how that connects to the work around gender. So very quickly, before we get into the main part of this, conversation, I'll invite all of you, in no particular order, to quickly tell us about your work and how it connects to gender work. So I'll start with Patience Iribagiza. Dr. Patience, welcome. Kindly tell us a little about what you do and how your work connects with gender work. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Michelle. As I've said, it's a great pleasure to be here. I guess you can all hear me well. As I've said before, I'm the executive director and founder of a non-government organization called AfroArc. It's a young women-led organization, and we do work in different sectors, including sexual and reproductive health rights and services, women empowerment, governance, and as well as nutrition. So through women empowerment, it's all that we strive for gender equality. So I would say maybe one of the programs that we have already on the ground and mostly in villages, because that's where there are people who are still influenced by culture. We have a program called Urubohere Relief Program, where young women, mostly teenage mothers and most vulnerable women, come together to share their stories, mostly on SRHR and gender-based violence and how to resolve conflicts in their homes. So through that program, we've been able to harmonize, I would say, gender stereotypes, mostly trying to talk to wives and husbands in person and how they're going to, on how they identify their roles at home based on their genders. If it's a wife, you have to be doing cleanliness at home, taking care of the family, and the husband forgets that it's also one of his responsibilities besides looking for money. So we've also been engaging young boys as well, so that we can nurture a young generation for tomorrow that will be able to have that equity to achieve the equality. So briefly, I would say, since it's a young women-led organization, all that we've been doing is that we made it a young women-led organization because it's one of the most vulnerable population, if I may say, women and girls, concerning this gender equality or inequality. So we made it a young women-led so that we can at least have a way of advancing women and girls in general, so that we can at least at some point we be having that equality. Maybe I would say that's what we do in summary, and maybe if there will rise any other question, I'll be gladly to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for that great contribution, and I really do appreciate how your work really comes through in this fight for gender equality. Thank you so much, and very quickly we will now move on to Cabello. Cabello, kindly tell us a little about what you do and how it connects to gender work. Cabello?
Thank you very much. We started the Young Men Movement about 5 years ago. And looking through the village where I come from, I realized that there are quite a lot of issues regarding the boy child, that we are in a society that is more focused on the victims and not doing much about the perpetrators or potential perpetrators, which will be boys and men in this regard. So then we took it upon ourselves to say that we need to get to a space where we also look into the life of the boy child. What are the things that are contributing towards the negativity of his masculinity? What are the things that are making them grow up to be hard men that only emote anger and nothing else? So that is how we get into the gender issues, to say that for us to have a society that has more progressive men and women, we need to start focusing on the boy child. We need to ensure that we give him the necessary tools to ensure that he also becomes better, to ensure that he also looks into his life and understands the dynamics, that it's not about raising boys and men that will respect women and girls, but about raising men and boys that will respect human beings in general. So our aim is to raise better men, better boys who will fit into a society that is ideal, who will also contribute towards us fighting patriarchy, us fighting misogyny, sexism, and any other form of things that we do not.
And truly, you cannot discuss gender work without including men. And so that is very commendable. And thank you for telling us a little more. I hope we didn't get cut off. In case we did, my apologies for that. My Wi-Fi is misbehaving. I was inviting Hilowit to join in the conversation by telling us a little more about what she does and its impact on this conversation around gender. Hilowit?
Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, my role is basically advising programs and projects on mainstreaming of gender and youth empowerment and women empowerment. So basically, what I do is gender. So, but like as an organization, if I'm not sure if you are aware of about CARE. But what CARE does, whatever mainly the program areas are food security, SRH, and like humanitarian response, and also pastoral community, development in pastoral community, and resilience. So around the sectors, the objective of my role is ensuring integration of gender, women empowerment, and youth empowerment. What we do to do that, and what my role is in order to ensure mainstreaming of gender and youth empowerment, is working on social norms. So the strategy we use is engaging community to discuss about the social barriers, like gender and social norm barriers, using different tools that allows them to create a community discussion, a community dialogue. So we bring together communities, both norm holders and like communities like women, men, boys, and girls, and norm holders like rule makers, lawmakers, religious leaders, community leaders. So by engaging this group of people, we identify norms that are more relevant to the objective we are trying to achieve in the project. For instance, if it's an SRH project, we're going to identify who are the norm holders in relation to women reproductive health. In this case, it can be, mother-in-laws. It can be religious leaders. While in the food security sector, it can be government programs. We have like a PESNP program. That's a huge program working on resilience, a government program. So whomever is a stakeholder in that sector, we're going to identify them as the norm holders. And we work with the community to identify whatever norm is that's prohibiting women involvement, women participation, and men, norm, men discussion, men participation in gender equality and youth empowerment. And we will hold on an ongoing community discussion. That's one of the most successful approach we use to address gender equality. When it comes to gender-based violence, we work mainly on protection and response, and identifying, pathways in the community, because the implementation in operational areas we work on is really broad, basically half of the country. So we identify pathways, we disseminate those, and also we make sure existing protection mechanisms are strengthened by the government and the community. Yeah, in short, this is what my role is in gender and gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting us know. And I know this is taking a bit more time than we had anticipated, but it's very important to also understand the different contexts, to better understand how our contributions to this conversation impact the different contexts that we come from. So very quickly, we will now go to Rachel Mwikali. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, am
Yes.
I audible enough?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Very audible. Kindly tell us about your work and how it connects to gender work.
So, the way I'd say it, it's not my work, it's our work as Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defenders Kenya. And we are based, the way I said, in Mathare Informal Settlement, which is the largest informal settlement. But as our movement is more into even other grassroots community and informal settlements. So ideally, being a movement, our leadership is more on a feminist-led movement with feminist value, feminist approach, and human rights approach. The fact that Kenya is also patriarchal and misogynistic. So you find a lot when it comes to women making our own choices and girls. And when it comes to even like the spaces that are there are not, both private and public spaces are not safe for us. So what we usually organize is organizing based any human rights issues we link with it in terms of gender justice issue. Like for example, now there's been COVID. So as COVID affected women, keeping in mind also women and girls were not homogeneous. So how does it affect different kind of women? But also in terms of ensuring that we do a lot of political education and ideology on feminist values and organizing. And organizing meaning in terms, if you look at the history of Kenya, a lot of women contributed even a lot in the liberation struggle, but our story has been erased. People like the late Professor Wangari Maathai. If you see a role in terms of the release of political prisoners in the Freedom Corner, is never amplified. It usually puts the Professor Wangari Maathai, the Nobel Peace Laureate, and not looking the role she played. People like Mekatilili Wamenza, and even the current generation, like where we are now as young feminists, where in Kenya, most of us are bashed and we get a lot of resistance. But the idea of ensuring like we are able to disrupt, demystify the retrogressive culture that works against us, to ensure like girls and women are able to be in their full potential, and also recognizing that we are also primary stakeholders when it comes to peace, development, security, human rights, and also gender equality, because we cannot be saying you're talking about gender, and that's why I'm very clear. I'm not saying only gender, but I'm very clear in terms of gender justice, including the LGBTQ folks, and the fact that most even of unpaid care work is done by women. But when girls, but when unpaid care work is not seen as work, but when men do the unpaid care work is seen as work. So ensuring that we're able to center this kind of a conversation within the front here, and especially being in the ground, in the community, to ensure that we have that voice also where women and girls can be able to be themselves. But the most important thing is about centering that voice. What are these that work against us, women and girls, and women human rights defenders? So I'm looking forward, and the fact that this is 16 days of activism, where we are able, like in terms of also engagement, we focus also a lot on kids, teaching even the kids when they are growing up, how do you respect girls, even if it's boys, and I also like to live in an enabling environment that ensure there's opportunity for everybody, and not only for one gender. Yeah, so I don't talk much, we'll talk as we continue the discussion. Thank you.
No, but this is very important to let us know the different things that are happening in the field, in the places where most of these issues are rampant, and where there are even more layers to the issues that contribute to this becoming a major problem as we go along. So thank you for that, Rachel. Lastly but not least, we will have Robert Burale telling us a little more about how he does what he does and how it connects to gender work. Welcome, Robert.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate. As I said earlier, I do quite a number of things. But what I would want to put in the heart of, I've been doing the men's conference. I have the Robert Burale School of Leadership, and I have a mentorship program. And the mentorship program really is to raise men and women to understand who they are in society and not grow up looking at each other as enemies, because we realize sometimes now we do have boys and girls and the female and male gender fighting each other. Yet if we're supposed to work together for upward mobility, and also, of course, as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, is to make sure the men understand their God-given grace over their lives, and for the women also to understand what God put in them before they were born, so they grow up with the right identity, because growing up with the wrong identity is conquering the wrong mountain successfully. Or you're the kind of person whose right leg is on a banana peel and your left leg is on a slippery floor. So we have people quickly driving very fast towards the wrong direction. So we need to bring people back to the table and make them understand that we are not fighting each other, but we are supposed to work together for upward mobility.
I hear you, and indeed, that is all valuable work. So one of the first questions we had prepared for you, before we even get into the technical definitions of what a gender stereotype is, for the benefits of those who are probably hearing this for the first time, maybe we start with some examples. What is a gender stereotype that you grew up with? So I'm going to split this across the panel. I will have 3 panelists discussing examples, and I'll ask another 3 to just give us a general explanation of them. So I will direct this question to Burale. Yes, Robert Burale. What are some of the examples of gender stereotypes that you have encountered, either from your childhood or even leading up to present day?
Well, 2 things. Number one, as a boy when I was growing up as a male child, is a boy should never show vulnerability. And if you show that, you're a weak man. And now in my older self, see, I'm not a very young man with my silver fox, but I'm not too old anyway. I will always speak about when divorce happens. People know I'm a divorced man, minister of the gospel, a public figure. So you get a lot of judgment, like you as a preacher of the gospel. Why are you preaching the gospel? Why are you talking to us about relationships, yet you cannot keep on your own? So I'm sure I'm going off topic, but I needed to bring that because many divorced people, and I've been leading quite a few of them in an association we have, feel that they're judged in that area. It's a stereotype that every divorced man should not stand up and talk about.
Understood. Thank you for that. I will also invite Hilawit to tell us, to give us an example of a gender stereotype that you either had when you were growing up or something that you have is still true for you in present day. Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, the one that stands the most out is girls need to be shy. You have to say less. You have to, shy out from public speaking. I'm not naturally, an interest person, but I had to. I wanted to be. I tried really hard not to speak up when I was really young. Generally, as a culture in Ethiopia, we don't speak that much, by the way. Even like I'm the most, I think, currently I'm, like I was in Yali and I observed that among the different countries, those from Ethiopia were saying less because that's how we raised, and the women are expected to say much less. So I tried very hard to be distant, like shy person as a woman. I didn't succeed, obviously, and I'm glad I didn't. Because I'm here because I'm not, shying away from the opportunities that I got, and I'm not shying away from what I'm supposed to do in my career and life. Yeah, and that's, I think, like one of the major norms that bring violence, that expects men to be aggressive and violent, and that expects women to be passive, and submissive.
If it's any consolation, I remember even I growing up would be told girls are to be seen and not to be heard. So we are one of the rebels in this situation. So it's very nice to know. And then I'll finally ask our last panelist to tell us about a gender stereotype that they either had growing up or something that they have had recently in present day. And I'll direct this to Dr. Patience. Unfortunately, you are muted.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Oh, you can hear me now? Thank you so much. I would say, starting from what my colleague just said, I'm still even facing this thing, because when it comes to public speaking, they expect that if you're a girl or a woman, you know, and you're addressing to a big number of people, that means that you're way beyond someone's, you know, you're way beyond what a girl should be or what a woman should be. So in Kinyarwanda, they call it ingare. That means someone who is, you know, when a child is not displayed at home, or, you know, a child who is involved in drugs and all that. So it's like the parents are kind of like not really much giving more, they no longer give the child an attention as a good child, if I may say. So that's literally what happens to me up to now. So I grew up so timid, I couldn't speak in front of people, and that's one of the things that when I grew up, and that's one of the things that when I grew up, I kind of was like, what should I do for my fellow girls or for my fellow women who had such timid or shying away situations as girls? How am I going to empower them? So besides that, I remember one time when I was in senior two, I used to do basketball, and my dad would say, no, you should stop that. Why? Because you're going to have a masculine shape. So, and I was really interested, and felt like I really enjoy this. So it was really hard, because I was like, why should I do it if something that my brother can do, why do they stop me from doing it? So at sometimes I could go play without telling him. So if I could, you know, I could even, like, we have an opportunity to join the basketball academies, so that we can, you know, go to bigger teams. So I couldn't have the chance, because my dad could tell me, no, you should not go there because you're going to have a muscular shape. So it's something that we are still as well facing as women and girls. I would say it's really hard, and we're still struggling with it, but at least we know that we know that we are capable of doing what we want to do. So that's why we're still fighting to way forward, to see at least at some point that even men, and all we do, that we engage men and boys, so that at least at some point they'll be able to see that we can do what we can do, and they can do what they think that it's only meant for only girls or women. So I'm really glad that today I can be able to use this opportunity as well, be able to talk to many people as possible and share my ideas. In Rwanda, we have a proverb that says, what a woman can say, if I try to translate it, it's like, there won't be peace. That means any idea or any thought of a woman can't build anything at all. So today, that's literally what women in mostly the married women are facing, and that's where we have literally divorces, as my colleague said earlier, and GBV as well, which is at a high rate. So I would say we are still struggling to see a better future with no gender stereotype, with no gender identification concerning characters and roles. Thank you.
That was quite elaborate, and I thank you so much for also saying all these things, because in a way you have preempted some of the issues we will discuss in this panel. How all these stereotypes contribute to identity for the different genders, and how that can be problematic, be it socially, be it at the workplace, be it politically. All these are things that all these nuances we cannot go without considering and even unpacking for those who might be truly unaware. And now we will shift gears, and I will change the questioning a little. Rachel and Cabello, I hope you do not mind. The next question I was going to ask is, in your opinion, how are stereotypes formed? So I'll start with Kabelo, and then we'll go to Mwikali. Kabelo, can you tell us, in your opinion, how you think these stereotypes come to be?
Michelle, I didn't get the last part of the question.
I was asking,
please
in
repeat
your
that for me.
opinion, no problem. In your opinion, how do you think that stereotypes come to be? How are they formed? How are they formulated as stereotypes? Are we clear now?
Oh, I see what you mean. I think we live in societies where, yeah, I'm very clear, thanks. I was saying that we live in societies where if something is done over and over again, it sort of becomes a norm. And because at first, those that may see it as a problem don't voice out their issues or concerns. And later on, we realize that we've been embracing a way of life or a way of doing things that actually makes others suffer. And then we come back to realize that, oh no, we shouldn't have gotten to a point where we allowed this for this long. However, we need to go back a few steps. There was a point where it was very much normal for, I'll give it in a South African context, where we talk about labor migration, where people will move into the big city called Johannesburg, leaving their villages just to seek after work, right? And in most cases, it was mining. And under those circumstances during apartheid, it was more men that were required to do this hard labor, leaving women at home to take care of the kids and other things that they can do within the household, right? So in that context, it made sense then for people to allow men to go to the cities to go and work. But in the context of today, it's very different that even women can go into the mines, because the work done in the mines doesn't only just require physical strength or what we will term masculinity in that regard. So sometimes they are a result of what is required at a particular point, whereby the man will come back home, and because he was at work the whole day, the woman will be the one cooking. But today the context has, if I'm working, I knock off at 5, my partner knocks off at 7. When they come back home, they should find dinner ready, because we're living in a society where the working hours are different. The responsibility to cook is not something that should be subjected only to women, because the circumstances have changed. So in us even correcting what was wrong, we also need to give context. We shouldn't just talk about bashing what was done then. We must remember the context in which it was done. So part of the things that create all these gender stereotypes is how society was built. It's how all these governments that were running Africa, to be even more specific, were trying to achieve their goals. And in most instances, labor was reserved for men, and dealing with chores at home was something that was done mainly by women. So that is how most of them were formed or formulated. And today we have a chance to correct most of them, if not all of them, to a point where we make men aware that the responsibility to eat is not something that should only be your wife's responsibility or your partner's responsibility. Cooking, making food is a basic need. Both men and women, girls and boys, have to be able to cook, because we're not living in a society where we need to move far away from home to get jobs. And even if that is the case, it's not only just men that are moving. Even women have the opportunity to leave their homes to go work outside their country, to go work outside their city or outside their village. And in that way, we need to start moving on with the times, understanding as men that times have changed, and we also need to be playing certain roles that normally we wouldn't play. And it was not wrong of the time, it was because of the circumstances allowed for such.
I like that you point that out, that at some point the stereotypes were there to maintain law and order, or in some way make things work easier for communities. But I think as we have evolved and moved through different contexts, there has been change. And I think the resistance to change is what has caused this problem. So it's very nice of you to have highlighted that. That was very helpful. I'll quickly now go to Mwikali, Rachel, who will tell us how she feels that, or that what she thinks, these stereotypes are formed. Rachel?
Oh my God. So I need also like to follow up on what is it Cabello had said. First, what I usually say and stand for in the gospel of cooking is a survival skill that everybody should learn how to cook. It should not only be designed for women, it's survival skill. When you hear your life is at risk, what do you do? So that is something everybody should learn how to cook and not put it for girls or women. But now coming in terms of now gender roles were defined. If you ask me, basically, it was created to only benefit the men, if you ask me personally. And in terms of this unpacking power and privilege, why will, like in the communities we live, let me talk in the context of Kenya and where I'm coming from, and also the few other countries I've been within the continent. If you look in terms of shifting, why will men feel bad cooking? But like I give an example, but if it's about putting commercial in it or money in it, they don't feel bad cooking. I can say I'm a chef. Men can say that they are a chef, they are working in Sarova or Stanley, blah, blah, blah. But do these men, the same men who cook in those places, come and cook for their kids and their partner? They don't. So it's about power and privilege. And for me on this, I'm usually very clear in terms of also like on patriarchal system and structure and how it works within the society, so that it catalyzes on how also women are able to challenge this kind of power within the society that works against them and girls. Because you find if you're a woman, even sometimes for me personally, I sit down, I'm like, it seems like those women, when you grow up in the community, people used to say, this is those aunts that they talk too much or they challenge power, and they're sort of not sort of look quote unquote an African value. Because if you look, even for the most women within the society who have been able to challenge these gender roles that works against women and girls, they are called sort of names. And that's why also it comes in terms of what is culture within our own context. Because for me, what I believe culture is created by people. If we have sort of created our culture is meeting here for Zoom for 1 hour, that's our culture. So it can change. So if we have this culture that we usually use it as an excuse and say our African culture is a culture whereby if we are buying even toys for kids, we only buy pink for girls and blue for boys, that's problematic. Or if you also you're setting up standards of books, syllabus in schools, like and putting the roles of women is this and the roles of men are this, that's very problematic. We need to challenge that. Because now the way you're saying, it doesn't mean that women have not been able to participate in this process that have been also like seen as if they're not their roles. And this also will come to a point whereby also, with all the due respect of religion, I respect religion and for the religious people, but I feel also sometimes in terms of neocolonialism and colonization, it played a critical role in terms of framing the gender roles. Like, for example, when you say the man is the head and the woman is the neck, what does that mean? It means whatever a man says, it's correct. It means whatever a man's, like, even if they make decisions that are not progressive, it's fine. And if you look in terms of also like being a vocal woman, and this also like it comes also to also political leadership and choices within our body. You find that if you're a vocal woman, you'll be told, no, women should not, you can intimidate men. Why are you talking so much? Why are you so like very aggressive? And this for me, it's problematic. It's one of those gender roles that works against women and girls in terms of fulfilling their own potential. But it's okay for a man to be vocal. It's okay for a man to be radical. That's problematic. So for me, it goes back to unpacking power and privilege. And for me, here, it's also like a responsibility. I usually throw it to men. And also maybe Brale on you also, because also you have the male conference. I believe also the response is not a labor of women to teach men on how to do these things. These things are automatic, like you use your head. But it's the reality whereby, you know, it's common sense. I need to be doing this. I know my wife, she's tired. Or my partner, she's tired, I need to do this. Or I know as Mwikali, my partner is tired, I need to do this and this. But not the fact, you know, even for the working class women, they are still working and they have to come back and do the work in the house that is not considered at work. You know, even like the way we said cooking, you have to do like a lot of mathematics in your head when you're planning to cook. It's like a plan, the way people plan programs. Like I need to cook this for dinner, this is how I need to budget, and this is what I need to do. If it's washing, the same. So it's problematic when we don't see even unpaid care work as work. But when men do it, it's work. So it's our collective responsibility. We should not only be burdened on men and women. It's a collective responsibility where society, community, and different stakeholders are able to say it's our collective work we need to do, all of us. But also not forgetting in terms of also like on how we socialize even our kids in the communities and the areas we come from. And even opportunity-wise. How many of us, even when it comes, for example, to land rights, even land negotiation in Kenya, which sometimes makes, most of the time makes me annoyed. Like even still in this area of 21st century, for you as a woman to go and buy a land somewhere, or for your parents to go and buy a land somewhere, or in terms of also inheritance, there has to be like driven by patriarchal, by patriarchs. Like it's only men that are allowed to negotiate and not women. Why is it that it's only men are allowed, and as much as it's your money, like why is it that men are allowed to negotiate and not women to negotiate? So you see where now it comes to power, because they know when they feel they are the ones controlling, it feels that the ones they're in that. Why is it if I go out with a guy and I'm the one who's paying bill, I'm paying transport, they'll be like, okay, taking the bill to the guy without asking me, or who should I give the bill? And it's very unfortunate because of this, the way I'm saying, the patriarchy that has been catalyzed within our own community, that it has also been mastered in such a way women are able to be internalized in it. And when they are doing it without the political consciousness and understanding, they'll never understand it's something that has been created to oppress us. Because for me, I feel gender roles are also oppressive. And that's why you will see that even when it comes to discussions, when people will tell you, you know, Rachel, you are feminist, but leave your feminist outside the door. When you're in the house, you're a feminist. I'm like, no, my friend, feminist is in my DNA. It's 24/7. But it does not mean if I have a partner, we can't live together. We'll live together as long as they respect me and I respect them. And as long as we understand this where we are sort of to be. So I still believe it's the right timing, and I love the kind of conversation, the way it is, even the panelists, and seeing where it's each one of us responsibility in shifting these narratives, in shifting these realities, because where we are, we can't maintain, we can't maintain in maintaining the status quo of oppressing women and girls when it comes to gender roles. No, we can't do that. Yeah.
One of the things that's coming out from that very powerful, almost very personal interaction with gender stereotypes and how they've affected women in general is the fact that some of these things are so deeply internalized that even changing them becomes quite a challenge. And I can understand the challenges that come with, you know, change and how the resistance to change, especially where there were benefits once being enjoyed by a particular party, and them having to relinquish some of those benefits. I totally understand how difficult it is. And you're really right that this is work for everybody. Everybody is involved. Nobody will be left behind. I have just been alerted that we have one of our final panelists, Nyawira, is on board with us. Hi, Nyawira. Hello? Okay. But as we're going through, I will touch base with Nyawira as soon as she's ready. But as we go along, I wanted to know, I do hear that, I mean, I understand the difficult gender stereotypes that exist already. But I'll throw this question to Hilawit. In your opinion, do you think that there are good gender stereotypes? Are there things that, I mean, is it all bad? So is there like a good gender stereotype?
I think Cabello was mentioning how the stereotypes come up into the community. They were formed to support us, you know, survive for the time being and the context we were living in. But as we evolve, once you know, like those norms give you power. Gives powers to one gender and takes power from the other, and you know, once you get the power, you don't want to lose it. That's a privilege you don't want to miss. You do it consciously or subconsciously, you know, but you don't want to lose it. So for that, you create another norm, you know. So maybe first, women had to cook because the men were traveling outside and collecting or gathering something for the family. But later on, women should only cook and say less because they will challenge the norm, go out and do more. So norms, some norms from their intention were not bad. They actually helped us survive. and function as society. But other norms come and one perpetuate the bad or the wrong side of it, and other created another problem by adding other norms. So for me, not all norms are created as wrong, or not all norms are bad for gender equality, because norms are what holds us together, and norms are what created the community overall. That's what basically coexistence is created by. So that's how we coexist, not coexist based on the laws and regulations or international provisions. We coexist because community laws and the community norms exist. So not all norms, even gender norms, are necessarily bad. But as I mentioned earlier, based on our needs, based on what to need to continue and how we should survive, we have to come up with a way of rewriting the norms, rewriting and challenging the norms. So we won't be get rid of every social and economic norm and social norm overall, but we need to rewrite it, and we need to critically question them so that we can see the consequence for gender equality and gender-based violence, particularly. So when we talk about gender norms, we need to be really careful why we are challenging it. So like I heard Rachel talking about, mentioning and saying little things about African feminism, Afrofeminism, radical feminism. And I think for me, not all feminism works for.
Sorry, you've muted yourself. Sorry, just unmute. I don't know what happened there.
Sorry. So I will restate the statement. So I heard Rachel mentioning a little bit about feminism ideologies, and I believe every one of us, especially women, we lived in, those women who stand out of the norm, stand out of the context you are expected to. You lived by some feminist ideology, whether you like it or not. But what that feminist ideology did to your life and which norms were you challenging is the main thing we should talk about. So we should be careful about when we talk about norms, when we talk about feminism, because not all feminist ideologies works for everyone. Not all norms are bad. So we should be careful, and we should be contextualize the feminist ideology, the norm ideology, the change ideology we are taking upon. So I'm more of African feminist than a radical feminist. I'm not saying I'm against feminists because I'm a feminist, but I think when we stand up, when we work, especially as a professionals, when we talk about feminism and when we talk about change in norms, we should think about what norms we want to change, which norms we want to change. So I don't necessarily say all norm is bad, because that's what we are holding us together. Yeah, thank you.
And it's really interesting that you have pointed out that, we can all be logged onto this conversation at different levels and in different contexts. And I think I understand how everybody is affected differently by this. And so they will show up from their point of interaction with their issues. So that's very also important to note. I will also ask Robert Burale the same question. In your opinion, even just based on what you are familiar with, do you think that there are certain elements of gender stereotypes that are, is it all bad? Is it all gloom and doom? Are there things that are working, to you? You will answer that as you see fit. Robert?
Okay, thank you very much. I like what the other speakers have spoken, and I do agree with them. Sadly, sometimes when we hear the word stereotype, we tend to lean towards a misguided perception about something based on influence, whether it's media, culture, and all those things. But yes, as our previous speaker who has just spoken, rightly put it, not all is doom and gloom, but we have been tuned to think when you hear the word stereotype. And yes, rightly so, it means then it's something, a misguided perception about something. But allow me also, and I think Madam Mwikali is doing a fantastic job, and I'm glad she's a very well articulated lady. And I know I'll always come from the place of the Bible. Remember, I'm a minister of the gospel. So that is one thing that I hold very dear to me. Yes, there is when we say, who say the man should be the head and the lady is the neck. We can't have two heads. And allow me to explain further. Both are heads, but in different ways. There is a way a man is the head, but cannot work without the headship of the woman. What do I mean? We look at the head. The head has the eyes, has the nose, has the mouth, and has the ears. Okay. And it is the eyes that have the vision. And that's why. And the truth of the matter, I have had the privilege of escorting many young men for dowry negotiations. And most of the time, it is the mothers of the girl who ask, oh, young man, where are you going to lead my child to? I'm giving you my daughter. Is she safe with me? So it's clear that a man must have the vision to take the family forward. That's why the eyes are there, and the nose to smell there is danger for the family. The mouth is there to speak where you want the family to go, and the ears to have your eyes on the ground to know where your family is at. But remember, this head is useless without the neck. It is the neck that decides to turn where the head to where it's supposed to go. So a woman has the power. But now that's why I said when I introduced myself, is that we need to understand that we are not fighting from opposing sides. And if we do that, then there has to be a winner and the loser. Let's understand that we must fight on the same side. And that's why these stereotypes, the negative ones, have come to bring division among the male and the female. And let me be honest with you, and I've seen a comment from somebody, even in GBVs, do you know men are also victims? I was hosting the International Men's Day a few days ago, and there was a man there who lost his sight because his ex-wife poured acid on him. But now when that man speaks, people are trying to tell him, no, take it easy. You can't say a woman did this to you. That's also a stereotype, you understand? So we need to come to a place of convergence and understand we are not fighting each other. Like our lady said here, that not all feminism is good. There is a level of feminism that says feminism is bashing men. And that's not how it's supposed to be. There has to be some diluting in some, and gladly of everybody who has spoken here, I'm not seeing any toxic feminism, but we have to be very realistic here. So for me, I think my work today was just to bring a biblical perspective and understand, yes, we are the same, but at the same time, we're different. It's a conundrum. Same in as far as even ladies, it's inherent in them. They would say, nowadays, there are no men. I said, what do you mean there are no men? There are no men to lead us. And then maybe sometimes when the men lead, then some ladies say, who says he is the only one who can lead? So please, let's drive this conversation to bringing us together and saying we got to work together. I am right-handed, but my right hand needs my left hand for my body to balance. We need to work as a team. Yes, there's some things that need to be changed. We cannot grow or raise our kids saying a woman's place is the kitchen. I don't agree with that. We can also not say that a boy should not show vulnerability. And that is why now we have gone into men having depression. Women contemplate suicide. Men actualize suicide. Why? The stereotype. Mwanaume ni kumia. In Kiswahili, that means a man must struggle hard. A man should not cry. A man should not show vulnerability. You understand? And then that is why some stereotype takes us into dangerous places.
And it's so interesting that all these things are coming up. I'm almost afraid to ask all the panelists because all these things will emerge. But it's also very important to be careful about how we do it because, two wrongs don't make a right. So I understand how this is progressing moving forward. But I also think it's very important to also remember that this is years of pain and years of oppression showing up now. It's going to be heated, whether we like it or not. And so allow me to move on to one of our next questions. And I like that all of you have managed to bring out the different ways that gender stereotypes kind of show up in the different sectors around our socialization. And I think for it to be more like a balanced conversation, I'll probably lead the conversation a little bit, but I want to ask Rachel, for example, with the women that we know, or rather the women that you encounter in your work, how do you think gender stereotypes have manifested when it comes to earning a living or workplace dynamics? How do you feel that their gender stereotypes have manifested in their places of work?
Thank you, Michelle. First, for clarity, when it comes to feminist struggle, I agree in terms of the politics around Black feminism, white feminism, and everything. Feminism stands for a lot of things when it comes to human rights. That's anti-militarization, for social justice, equal opportunity for all genders, LGBTQ rights, you see. And the moments, like, the reality is that when you're fighting an oppression, even you being a Kenyan, you cannot be in a good pay with your oppressor. The same way most now Kenyans are complaining about the government with COVID. Who is smiling? They're all calling out government. So it's the same way, if a woman is oppressed, you don't expect them to be good to the oppressor. Even me personally, Mikali, I can never be good to my oppressor. That's black and white. So I think it's good to understand also that there are also patriarchy princesses within the movement. And that's why when you see vocal women, now we're talking about gender stereotypes, the ones who are vocal, they'll be named, these are the radicals, men hater, and everything. If they've chosen not their path, they have their own issues. We also have men who are woman haters, they hate women. But now coming to the point of also violence when it comes to gender justice, anyone, whether you're a man or a woman, LGBTQ person, you should not go through violence. That's paramount. People can't negotiate. That's a criminal case. And I think now when you talk about gender roles, now I'm coming to that point so that I respond. Even if you're that man, you're going through violence, stop keeping quiet, speak out. Women, the thing with us women, the good thing is that we are organizing in a manner where, like, everything works against us. Everything works. The fact I'm a black woman, the fact I'm a woman living in slum, a young woman, things works against me. So you find my life is consistently on fighting on daily basis. And for me, that's why for me, I'm very angry, and I'm very angry in terms of I cannot watch oppression of myself or any other woman or any girl happening, and then you expect me to smile. That one, it's no-go zone. That one, I don't compromise. And now coming in terms of also the women we work with and the women we stay with, even me, my person, even the field I am in of activism, even in this country, you find a lot of us women do a lot of work, but the payment is too little. The women like who live here who go to do construction work in Isili, if I compare, I've had that discussion with their counterparts who are guys. Guys are paid like 600, the women are paid 400. So you can see there's inequality in terms of payments. There's inequality in terms of quantifying the work both genders are doing. So you find still it oppresses women, and it oppresses, like, even in terms of the economic wise. And if you look in terms of also like they're organizing, even I know for those who also like into other workspaces, why is it that when it comes to certain positions, they'll be like, we are giving this to men and not to women? And what will be these oppressive excuses they'll use? You're a woman, if you get pregnant. You see, the biology is usually used now against that as form of gender roles, where also the gender role which is seen as a woman role is for reproduction. But also at the same time, sex cannot only be used for production, it can also be used for pleasure. So you see all this gender role, when it comes even to sex, pleasure, and sexuality, it doesn't work on behalf and favor of women. When it comes even now with COVID pandemic, and now look in terms of the family, when he said, even when Brady said about the man being the head. And the reason why I was very clear in saying that women are not homogeneous is that women exist in different ways. And if we live in such a way, we are also quantifying that a family is where always there's a man, a woman, and kids. It's problematic. We have most families that are also women aided. Do we mean that also those are not aided households with women who are powerful? So we have to be very clear when also we're unpacking these things, so that it doesn't look we only fall into this also part of role that a family exists where there's a man, a woman, and kids. Because there are a lot of even most families that are women-headed. My family is also women-headed. But now looking in terms on now, we have to shift. We can't deny also the media play a critical role. A lot of women, like when we did during this COVID, because we have been responding now at first as Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defender to move from to the work we do on a daily basis to now focus on humanitarian work, but with the lens of human rights and feminist approaches and gender justice approaches. We realize like a lot of women who do informal businesses, which quote unquote people will call informal, but for me, I see it's businesses. They are the most affected. But when it comes to even the jobs, the one we called even the government package, they're not reaching out to these women. And even if it's the youth kazi kwa vijana, it only goes to kwa vijana, not the boys and not to the girls, which has been a discussion where we are pushing even our local administration here to involve more girls to access kazi kwa vijana and not be able to only get it to the boys. Because you realize the space, the way I say it, is not enabling. And for those, the kind of opportunity that is given, it has to be like the one who can fight. And you know, also as women in nature, we don't like where there's violence. We don't like to be in a violent space. We don't like, and violence, and I mean violence, and also being that in 16 days of activism, we need also to be clearly that violence is not only physical violence. Either it's economical violence, psychological violence, and looking in time even the existing cases that have been going on, I'm trying to link different themes, like femicide cases, which makes me really annoyed. Looking where we started to end femicide in this country, you will see it's a violence against women, it's a murder, but the way it was framed in such a way that it humanizes the girls and the women that were killed, but humanizes the guys who have been either the perpetrators or the people catalyzing that kind of violence. You could see even the musician, the way they were talking about this kind of songs that were catalyzing violence, but the same even guys, you not call them and tell them what they're saying it's bad. It's also like it's also like influence violence, which we should not all exist. You see, so it's very important to ensure like all of us call out this kind of violence. All of us call fighting femicide in this country, and refusing to use the moral card, because I don't like the whole idea sometimes, because what is moral to you might not be moral to me. It's like the same way, my dress, my choice. What you think is decency to you is not decency to me. So if I choose to be in a certain way, people should respect that, as long as I'm not violating someone's rights. And that's also the fact that looking all this spectrum of gender in such a way, it's looked in intersectionality manner. Like who brings what can it be paid? How does that contribute to this? What can be brought to this? How do we quantify that to be work? So I think it's very important. I know all of us come from different spaces, from different backgrounds, but we have to be able, it's a learning process, but also we have to also be able to teach ourselves to learn this thing. Nobody will come and teach you about feminist politics or gender justice perspective, but personally deep down in your heart, to know, like, even I, Mwekali, I cannot perpetuate violence. It's wrong. I should not be violating people because I can say because I'm a feminist, blah, blah. But the fact that I fight for my own existence, people should respect that. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, those were so many issues that I actually had difficulty keeping a track of all of them. But these are all pertinent to this conversation. And I feel like there is a place and really a space for all these conversations to be had. And one of the things I admire about what I'm getting from your contribution is how we should all be holding space for each other. We are all coming from different points of enlightenment when it comes to this subject. And so helping each other catch up with each other or move closer to a more inclusive, more diverse community, and letting people really just be themselves, expression of self, is what I'm really getting from your contribution. And I'm looking at the time and we are now into our second hour. So panelists, unfortunately, I will have to put a cap on how much time you get per subject matter. So kindly limit yourself to about a minute and a half. So then that way we can get a more inclusive contribution from everybody in our panel. Nyawera, I'm told you are now ready for us. Kindly confirm that you can hear us. Can you hear me at least? Okay, and then she dropped off from the call. That's unfortunate. It's okay. We'll wait for her to come back. But I again pose this question to Kabelo, who can give us the context from where he currently resides. Kabelo, how do gender stereotypes show up when it comes to women and their places of work or their access to opportunities in the workplace? However you want to answer that. Kabelo, are you still with us? There you are. Okay.
Just yesterday, we were looking at statistics that were coming out of the UN report regarding opportunities for women, regarding how women are still earning very less from what men are earning. And it actually gives us a very, very, very gloom and very uninspiring picture of how things are looking from a gender perspective. And you realize that that is a result of patriarchy in the bigger scheme, that when men are given opportunities, we are failing to let go. We are failing to make space for women to occupy the very same spaces, because it makes no sense, even in a South African context, to say that we have less than 20% of women who are CEOs, in particular Black women, but we have qualified women in our space that can actually be given those opportunities. So I think for me, one of the biggest problems is that the patriarchal ways of life are so dire, they are so erosive that they are creating spaces where, as men, we are not even willing to give up certain positions, from even political positions. I mean, to be in 2020, look at American elections, and having America has been around for so long, the democracy has been around for so long, but it's only now that they're celebrating the first Black deputy female president. That for me, it just shows how we are not moving at the pace that we are ideally supposed to be moving at. And even here locally, when you talk about political opportunities and when you talk about women being at the forefront, you realize that there's still quite a high number of limitations. And it's because of we are not taking our focus to put it on one thing or in one basket to say that this is our goal for 2030, this is our goal for 2036. But that is not just a South African problem. You even look at the UN and the AU, when they talk about different deadlines on what they're going to do to improve the lives of women, on what they're going to do to ensure that more women are placed in positions of power and influence, you realize that the time comes and passes and not even half of their goals are reached. So I think for me, we need to be deliberate. We need to be resolute about the things that we're saying. It can't just be a question of discussions. It can't just be a question of webinars. It can't just be a question of conferences. It must be something that we can measure. It must be something that we can look at and say, this is how far we've come.
I couldn't agree more with you. That, of course, there's been progress, but we have moved so slowly to get to where we are today. And yet, even more work exists, or like there's an opportunity for us to cover even more ground. And now we will shift the context and we will move from the workplace and probably move to relationships and or other kinds of relationships. Let me say like friendships, for example. Modern day, or rather present day society. I'll say, Nyawera, are you good for us, Nyawera? Want to confirm that you can hear?
I hope so. I can
It's
hear
okay.
you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly and I can see you now. Paul, I really admire your resilience to stay on this call. I know how challenging it can be, and that's okay.
I know.
Happy to have you now. Right?
It's hectic.
And so very quickly, I want to hear from you. How do gender, in your line of work, because I know you're a producer and a music artist, and I want to ask you about relationships, because I'm sure those are things that you probably write about or share interests in. And so in your opinion, how do gender stereotypes manifest when it comes to modern day relationships, modern day friendships? And are there problem areas? Is it all good? Is it all bad? What do you think? Did we just lose her again? Nyawera?
Yes, you just did. I'm here, guys. I'm here. Did
you hear my
question?
Me?
I didn't.
Yes, I can hear
sorry, you have to repeat it. Okay.
Not a problem.
Can I
hear?
What
I had asked is, What I had asked is, how, in your opinion, in your line of work and also just in generally as a person who interacts with other people, how do you think that gender stereotypes have shown up in terms of relationships and present-day friendships, for example?
Okay, so I followed this conversation for a bit. When my internet was acting out, I'm acting up. I'm sorry, you guys. And I picked up Rachel talking about the LGBT community, because the whole conversation has been going on, referring to gender as a binary, and the way that I know it, gender is a spectrum. You cannot say male, female, and end it there. There's so many in betweens. But I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. There's gender queer folks, and there's people who do not identify as male or female. And then now makes the stereotype, the concept of now gender stereotyping even worse for such individuals. But these are the individuals I want to talk about, by the way. I'm here for the alphabet people. So in terms of relationships, stereotypes are coming from, like someone said earlier, from the way that systems are run. So a system that is well equipped to involve everybody, that would not naturally have stereotypes that we would say are negative, because stereotypes are not necessarily negative all the time. There's a thing we say about, people with, okay, this is selfish, but people with dreadlocks are gorgeous, naturally. It's a stereotype as well. But now when we're talking about gender stereotypes and relationships, there's let me talk about the one gender one. Friendships. It's very hard to see genuine platonic friendships between, say, cis men, cis women, because naturally it is assumed that there will be a sexual inclination in that
Oh dear. I can't believe that she was just about to share that and then she disappeared from the call. Okay, what we can do is that for everybody who's probably maybe a bit unfamiliar with some of those terms, just note them down, and for your own reading, to show your commitment to this discussion and this issue, do some research, read a book, pick up an article today and see how well you can understand this conversation, even just for yourself. Understand your limits and see your blind spots and move to a point of knowledge. I'm really disappointed that Nyawira was about to bring such an amazing contribution to this discussion. And I will still go back to her when she finally logs on. But I think we have also covered how leadership shows up, or rather how gender stereotypes manifest when it comes to leadership. And noticed Mwikali pointed out that most opportunities tend to be, especially the C-suite types, typically will continue. Or was it Cabello who mentioned that the percentages are still so low? And there's a whole report that details the extent to just how, we are still unequal, or like the inequality is still rampant in the workplace. Nyawira, I see you have logged us, like you've just joined the call. I think it's very important for us to hear what you have said just before we move on. Nyawira, confirm that you're able to hear me and to at least we can see your video. Nyawira? Okay, she's now completely dropped off. We'll put a pin on that because I think it's very important for us to get back there. But very quickly, we will now move on to something else that I wanted to hear about how gender stereotypes are harming men, because we are very clear about how they harm women and we are quite vocal about it. The people who I don't hear say enough about these situations is the men themselves, where they are being affected by a gender stereotype. And so I will pose this to Hilawit. Kindly tell us, in your line of work or just in your general opinion, based on the knowledge that you have, how do gender stereotypes harm men?
Yeah. I think the first thing is we don't see them as being the victims. So when and where there are victims, they don't get sufficient protection, sufficient services, sufficient response. I don't think we even have we have very, very limited resource and support around gender-based violence overall, and much more or less for men. So I think the stereotype that men, all, not all, but like men are the perpetrators, like creates a barrier for them to get the service when they are the victims. The other is because we have gender stereotypes around men being like manly, and the masculinity stereotype overall creates more perpetrators. If they are not perpetrators, they don't even know how to stand against it. So we never teach men how to stand against gender-based violence generally. So it harms them because even if they want to, they don't know how to. So like the stereotypes, it makes them victims. If they are not the victims, they don't know how to support or how to stand against it, because the stereotypes expect them, and at least not to dismiss the stereotypes that are creating the violence that we see now. And finally, where they are against gender-based violence, where they are standing against the stereotypes that are creating the violence we see now, they are seen as feminine, So it by itself, it creates identity crisis for men. They are supposed to be something, and they don't know how to be, like how to even oppose it. So it creates identity crisis among boys and men. And to solve it, I would say we have to rewrite the norms, and we have to rewrite the stereotypes that we see today. And even us, who thinks we are working on gender and we know a lot about gender and this masculine, how to dismantle the norms, I think we know very, very small amount, or we have a very small amount of knowledge to do it. And we are not providing sufficient support for men and boys to be part of the change. So I think that's the main issue they face as men and boys. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I noticed my co-moderator is here. Omeka, I will be touching base with you shortly. But before we get into our interactions on the comment section, I'll also ask Dr. Patience. You've been awfully quiet. I'm sorry for that. But we'd like to hear, in your context where you work, or in your immediate, let's say your country, how have problems, or rather gender stereotypes, harmed men in your society, based on what you have seen?
Thank you. I would say, just as my colleague said, I don't see men being so victimized that much. I would say like for women and girls. But basing on what was there concerning the roles, let's say at home, you would say that if a man has to go or, get bread for the whole family, that means something that is literally can be done by both a man and woman. So if he has that responsibility as the only person, that means it might be so hard for him. So that's what I would say. One of the things that would affect men in concerning the gender stereotypes, but generally it's more of women and girls being victimized concerning gender stereotypes, because they are considered as the weakest people. I would say they're considered so weak. They are considered not so. They're considered people who cannot be as productive as they think they might be. So it's not really. I would say it's not like men are really victimized by gender stereotypes, because they are considered as the strongest people, the people who are going to be productive, people who are going to be, they are the ones more exposed to more opportunities. But concerning my country, I would say that at least we are a step ahead, because we are now being given the opportunities to be, being given the platforms to express ourselves as girls and women. And when it comes to occupation as well, because our government is really trying hard to at least have women on boards, more women on board than men, because in all sectors, I would say. So it's a progress, but that doesn't take away the fact that the reality shoots in where that gender stereotype is being practiced. You can still have that leadership, we can still have that platform, but when it comes to our homes, it's not really the same thing that we are going to be seeing out there. So more work still needs to be done, and yeah, in one way or the other, it's going to be beneficial to both sexes or both genders, men and women. So that's
I
what
hear
I
you,
would
and I
say.
understand that. I think in that nature, it's mostly that women are showing up as the weaker sex, and for that reason, it's just a blanket statement across the different aspects of life, which is really unfair. Very quickly, I will invite Omeka to kind of talk about our comment section and see what reactions we are getting. I think we are almost out of time. So, Robin, kindly take over from here as we take a pulse of what the conversation has, contributed to people's thinking and the people who are watching live. Robin?
Thank you so much, Michelle. If you can hear me, please lift up your thumb. I need to know I'm audible. Awesome. Thank you so much. So the conversation on this back end of mine, the comment section, my WhatsApp is also on fire. It's lit. I've just received a video which I think I will be sharing in a few minutes. To break the ice, the conversation has been very, I'd say, scintillating, because English is, does not lack character when it comes to defining these things. So let me go straight to what our people have been saying. We have gentlemen and ladies. We have Bundu Pandit saying he's tuned in from Githunguri. Big up yourself. We have Dennis Okech, he's tuned in from Athi River. We have Willie Oeba, he's saying great insight. Dennis Okech again, he says, I am glad that today the gender discussion arena is characterized by discussions of empowering both genders, unlike yester periods where 90% of gender discussions were on empowering women. Of course, this was at a time when I think Burale was talking. Karanja Wangoi says niko ndani toka hapa CBD. He also says this is such an amazing discussion. Vankes Ndirangu says here we are. I want to take our attention straight to a video, to a comment by Mulunesh Wache, who says the belief that empowering women means disempowered men. What about the effect of the good woman stereotype, which has also been perpetrated by women themselves, especially the older generation? We have Masi Kaleche who says, most of the men are victims. Last night, one of my male friends saw a Twitter and he asked to meet me, asking where I get the courage to paint such shameful things on social media. Well, the truth is that the man is a victim and has been in a prison of confusion and shame. He is afraid of how harshly the society will judge him. Men are also humans and need equal protection. Of course, he's touching on a number of issues. I'm seeing Dennis Okech again says that Kaleche's question is very good. Generally, the comment section was alive. I'm seeing Daniel Onyango saying very interesting perspective from Rachel Muikali. Rachel Muikali, umepokea pongezi pale. Then we have Daniel Onyango again saying, Rachel Muikali, thanks for representing the voices of many youths within the informal settlements. Very articulate and also informative. Now, Cabello and Burale had to leave for other engagements they had at 12:15 p.m. Kenyan time. But I want to take this chance to play for you a video that has just been sent to me, and I feel it adequately describes what we are describing today as gender stereotypes. This video does not represent the views, the opinions, or the intentions of the partners who support this live stream. So let's all have a laugh. I don't know if you guys saw that. Okay. Asanteni sana. I'm done with the comments. I will hand over to you, Michelle, for further direction. So, Michelle, asante.
Thank you for that light moment, considering the heaviness of this discussion. Unfortunately, I feel like we have completely run out of time. It's now past 12:30. There are very important questions I had. There are a few issues we have not tackled. For example, I had wanted to discuss about how media has affected some of our gender norms and how we need to unlearn and how we need to hold them accountable for the messages that they portray, and how those influence our younger children as they grow into the different levels of, being an adult or rather being a human being in this world. And so what I will do, because I'm a cheeky person, is that I will still give people 1 minute to make their contribution. It's like a final statement. And Rachel, this is to you. 1 minute. It's 1 minute.
1 minute, because also I'm also running out of time.
Yeah.
I need to go to another meeting.
And so my question.
So I think
if you're clear, go ahead.
Okay,
Just
go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think also media has a very important role to play in terms of pushing the agenda of gender justice. And this will go particularly with the kind of also news they bring in when it comes to the roles. Like, for example, I've been seeing in Kenya, where if a woman politician is found into a corruption scandal, it's usually amplified. But when a male counterpart is found in a corruption scandal, it's not a big thing. So I think the media needs to be having these sessions, even programs that are more gender justice. And also, to put it clear, it's very unfortunate Nyawera, it was Nyawera, she pulled off. But I was very clear when we need to look also to look in terms of people who don't identify as either men or women, and how it affects them. Like, for example, why is it okay for a man to catcall a woman, but if another man catcall them, they get annoyed? Yeah. Why does it happen that way? So you can see the power thing dynamic, but also looking into the fact that also we need to know also LGBTQ folks exist and why it's important to put them in this kind of conversation of gender justice. And feminism exists, Black African feminism exists, and the way I said, women are not homogeneous. As long as you have information, and if you want information, there's Google, or look for it. Kenya, there's right to information. I know also there's that thing of also like it's not accessible to everybody, which also we are pushing as activists to be accessible, but also should not burden young women and African women the burden of gender. It has to be a collective work. All of us can do it, and being that it's 16 days of activism, though for me 16 days of activism is every day, not November to December. Let's ensure we center all this conversation and try to change from an individual perspective, from where I sit as Mekali. What do I do that contribute to the gender justice struggles? And how do you center the discussion within the space of also even women living with disability? So I don't talk so much. Thank you for the platform, for the opportunity, for sharpening contradiction discussion. We agree to disagree, but let's push the struggle forward for gender equality. Yeah, and it's true that not all women are pro-women, but it's because of patriarchy. Not that women, we are not supportive. Women, we support each other and we love each other. But patriarchy try to find its way to sort of ensure they bring this narrative that doesn't exist. Because also I know, so there are men that are not. They don't support men, but they don't say it. But when it comes to women, they bring it as if hatutambuani tunatambuana.
Rachel, hebu nikuambie mute because unakaa kuendelea. Thank you so much for that. And finally, I will invite Patience to really give us her final words around anything around what we haven't covered, media's role, and what you'd like to see moving forward. Just your final thoughts as we bring this conversation to a close. Dr. Patience?
Thank you, Michelle. I would say to start with, I would say commenting a little bit on what Rachel said. Feminism didn't come for superiority, if I may say. It came for, to harmonize equality. So it's just that different people have different opinions, and how different people do it. It also contributes, because everything we do, besides even feminism, how we do it, how we structure what we do, it also gives different messages. So coming back to the media and the future of young people today, media, the era we are in, it's a technological era, if I may say. Everyone is access media, and most of the information is passed on media, and anything that comes out today, or you say something today, in a few minutes you find it somewhere else, in a different country, in a different continent. So definitely, and also these media houses could play a big role. So one of the things, and I would say as well, the young people today, they're always on social media. Everything that goes on there, you find them more updated than the old people. So it also comes to engaging them. Whatever we do, we don't have to leave them out, because they're the ones who are going to spread that message, all that information. So one of the things that I would say that we are trying to do is training the media houses, people from media who give out all those messages, and as well as it also comes to different people, if I may say, on Twitter. An individual can who has many followers, if I may say, can write something, and that very thing is going to go everywhere. So it also has to look. Also have to look at those focal people who are, I would say, media influencers, or who are called influencers, to as well have to change their mindset concerning these gender stereotypes, so that whatever message they're going to spread out there, it's going to be a positive message. So I would say, as I'm concluding, I would say thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope that however much we're having different mindsets, we're going to join hands together and fight for this until we get the equality and as well as equity. Thank you so much, Michelle, and everyone here. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for your final views. I couldn't agree more. Truly, we are a melting pot of different experiences, we come from different points of information, different points of enlightenment, and we are all working together for the same things. It just comes off differently. And so we are all lovers and friends here. I will, as moderator and as a feminist as well, add my voice to this by saying, men should be lucky that women want equality, not revenge. I will go on to now.
Exactly, Michelle.
That's so true.
I will now move very quickly and thank everybody who was here. I'd like to now go through our panelists one last time before we close. Thank you, Hilawit Worku, who is a gender, youth, and social transformation advisor at Care International Ethiopia. Thank you for making the time. Thank you, Kabelo Chabalala, who is the chairperson and founder of the Young Men Movement in South Africa. Thank you for making the time. I'd also like to send my great thanks to Dr. Patience Iribagiza, the Executive Director of Afro-ARC, our Rwandese representative. Thank you for making the time. Nyawera Mushiri, who I still feel cheated out of because she did not finish her thought process, a singer, songwriter, and music producer. Thank you for trying to stay on this call, but we understand that technical challenges happen technology will let you down when you least expect it. Huh? Then I'd like to reach out. I'd also like to thank Rachel Mikali, as you know, our leader. She's a leader of Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defenders. Thank you so much for your contributions and your boldness in your sharing today, your honesty in sharing today. And finally, I'd like to thank Robert Burale, who is an image consultant, a motivational speaker, and market strategist, who really added his amazing thoughts and contributions to, and experiences even, to the discussion we had today. Thank you all for making the time. Before we go, I also like to remind you that this conversation is sponsored and coordinated by Heinrich Böll Stiftung, also known as HBS, as well as a Nika Initiative and Peace Tree Network. Kindly remember to have this engagement as we go offline. Remember to follow to follow their social media pages, tweet, comment, subscribe, and share this ongoing conversation. The main hashtag for today is gaining grip experience 3, but you can also use hashtag orange the world because we are in our second day of the 16 days of activism. This again it has been my delight to share this with you all. I really like what I have heard, what I have seen. I like what people have contributed even from the comment section. And for all of you who are wondering how to plug your voice, read more, and each one teach one. My name is Michelle Wanjiru. You will see more of me in the future. It has been my joy and pleasure to be your moderator. I will now hand over to our main moderator, Omeka from Anika Initiative. Robin?
Thank you so much, Michelle. We can all agree that Michelle has done an amazing job, and we are leaving this discussion having understood a great deal of information and issues surrounding gender and how they are stereotyped in our society today. Of course, as she has said, this conversation is currently ongoing. We will still be having a concert in the evening. For those of you who are wondering where you will get to hear Nyawera's sentiments, she will be there performing live from Power Rooftop. That's going, of course, it's going to be on YouTube and Facebook on all these pages. Please join in with the hashtag Gaining Grip Experience 3. This concert will start at 6 p.m. Kenyan time. So for my friends in Rwanda, that is 5 p.m. Rwandan time. For my friends in South Africa, that's 5 p.m. South African time. For my friends in Ethiopia, that's 6 p.m. as well. So thank you so much for joining us. But as always, we have to love you and leave you. From myself here at Anika, from Michelle, from Rachel, from Patience, it has been well, and we hope that you're keeping safe, warm, sanitized, and social distanced, as we will be for today's concert at 6 p.m. See you then.
Bye bye.